Hi there. You should now have, well, this tutorial is going to show you how to take a 3D object and attach a torus to the top so it can be used as a keychain. It is part of a series of videos that starts from a canvas where you can trace with the spline tool and then extrude, and those videos can be accessed in the same YouTube channel where this one is. So if I refer to previous videos, that's why. So we have a 3D object. As you know, you can orbit with this navigation cube, which is what I use the most when I'm not using control and middle mouse button. But we'll need that in a few minutes because we're going to want to look at different angles when we position our torus. For now, I'll just click the top and rotate it this way. I prefer to see it the way it's supposed to be. And by the way, when I'm shifting the area like this, that's called panning, and I'm doing it by dragging the middle mouse button. So I will now go to Create in Torus, and it wants me to click the plane on which I want to draw. I'm going to click the floor where my model is so that it turns out the same. And I'm just going to, I think around 6 millimeters will be good. If I want to be exact, I can type it in, and then I'm going to hit enter. And now it lets me set other settings. Right now the torus diameter would actually be the thickness. 1 millimeter's pretty small because it's likely to break off if this is something you're going to 3D print. I'm going to see what 4 looks like. Now 4 would be a bad choice because it'd be probably too thick to fit on a ring. So let me back it down to 2. 2 millimeters, is that going to be strong enough? Let me just see what 3 looks like. So I'm going to go 2 for now. If it turns out after printing that it's too weak, I could come back in and adjust this number. Okay. Go ahead and click OK to accept those changes. Now we simply need to move the torus into the top of the horse head and combine those. So remember that before you right click to move, it's better to have it selected. I generally trace around it. If I can't trace around it, I can click body 5, and then I can right click and go to move. And then you want to make sure that this says bodies. So now I'm going to move it to about there. So that looks like a pretty good, top-down perspective view. But it's important that you also look at it. I did that a little wrong. From a variety of angles, because even just doing this, we're now aware that the torus is not completely flush with the bottom of my horse. So I'm going to use this arrow so it only moves on that axis. And then if I spin it this way, and I'll go back to the top. Hope I'm not making you dizzy. Let me go back this way. So I like the way it's centered here. And I know it's flush with the bottom. You can also drag this to free move, but really what we're focusing on most is that it lines up on the bottom so that when it prints, it's all flat against the bed. If you want to pull this up a touch to get I'll zoom in a little bit so that the inside of that ring, now see how it's snapping? It snaps to the grid. You can use this square instead. It gives you a little bit more freedom. So maybe I want it to look like that. And again, I want to double check that it's flush with the bottom of my model, which it is. So I'm pretty happy with that positioning. I'm going to hit enter. At this point, I would say that I would want to give this a try for printing. I just want to remind you that one way to go from Fusion 360 to an STL model, you want to start with tools. And when you go to make, it assumes you want to use a print utility. In my case, that's rarely true. Usually what I do is I deselect this and then I select the model. Now you can see that it did not select the whole model, so I'm going to click cancel. In order for something with more than one piece to be saved as an STL, they need to be combined. So I'm going to go back to the solid thing. I'm going to go to tools. No, I'm not. I'm going back to solid. This icon here is the combine tool. It's also listed under the modify menu. So I'll go to combine. The target body is the main body. And then it's automatically waiting for you to select the tool body, which in this case is the piece I want to join. There are different operations here, but we're going to stick to join because we want to combine these together. When I click OK, you'll notice I now only have one body. So I can now go back to tools, and I can go back to the 3D print menu, deselect this because I don't want to send it to Mesh Maker. Now when I click this, the whole thing gets selected. You can see the 3D elements better if I tilt it a little. And when I click OK, it goes to a save as box, and so it's going to save the dialog box for me. So I can call this horse keychain. And keep track of where you have it, because then you're going to have to slice it to bring it to your 3D printer. So I hope that helps. Making it to keychains pretty easy. It's as easy once you're familiar with Fusion. The torus are easy to make because they're right under the create menu in the primitive section. And then once you're familiar with moving objects around, it's pretty easy to get that situated where you need it. So the last piece is just making sure they're combined so you can save it as an STL. So I hope that is helpful. See you in another tutorial.